So could a debt jubilee be right around the corner? And if so, what could that mean for our money and for the financial system in general? Well, let's talk about it. Okay, so I've talked about debt jubilees several times before on my YouTube channel, but I thought I would mention it again because we might have one coming up here, and I want to remind you of what this is all about. Now, I saw an article in Zero Hedge talking about an upcoming potential debt jubilee, and I thought, well, okay, good for them. Well, this is a good reminder to talk about it again. So this is an article out of Zero Hedge. A debt jubilee of biblical proportions is coming soon. Okay, so the idea of a debt jubilee is not a new phenomenon in the financial world. It's actually been around for about 3,000 or 4,000 years. And it sounds wonderful, right? I mean, what a name to put to it. What a spin. A jubilee, a party, a debt party. So imagine that you're a ruler of a kingdom in some ancient civilization, okay? So every once in a while, the populace would find themselves burdened with debt, and therefore they become very unhappy with their lives. And when you have an unhappy populace, that's when revolutions are possible. That's when people start, complaining and saying, hey, you know what, this is not good. And the rulers don't like the idea of people being unhappy enough that they can start a revolution. And after a while, rulers started to see a connection between overburdensome debt and an unhappy populace. And so what they decided to do is they came up with a pressure relief valve where they would, from time to time, announce a debt jubilee. Basically, all debts are forgiven by decree. I'm the king, and I'm saying all debts are forgiven. And then that ruler becomes really popular again. And then he can go back to spending his days in a sauna with beautiful girls feeding him grapes or whatever rulers did back then. But hold on a minute. When you take out debt, you're entering into an agreement, right? Debts are agreements between two willing parties. So, Bob wants to buy a plot of land so he can grow his wheat. So he goes to George, who has a lot of money, says, listen, I need 1,000 shekels to buy this piece of land. And George says, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the 1,000 shekels, but I'm going to charge you interest on that money. And Bob says, okay, I can live with that. So Bob borrows 1,000 shekels from George, goes out and buys the land and starts growing his wheat. And he's paying George his monthly payments, with interest. But then he has a couple of years of bad crops. And it's becoming harder and harder to make the payments to George on the loan. So Bob has to get a side gig selling fish. And so life is not very joyful all of a sudden, for poor Bob. And the king notices that there are a lot of Bobs out there with outstanding loans to a lot of Georges. And he doesn't want these guys to be too angry for too long. So the king announces one weekend, all right, party time, all debts are forgiven by decree. And now he's a really popular king. Okay, so all the Georges out there, they're saying, hey, what the hell? I gave this guy 1,000 shekels out of my own pocket. So he goes to Bob and he says, hey, Bob, I need you to keep up with your payments. Bob says, hey, according to the king, I don't have to. So take a long walk. So George is out 1,000 shekels and Bob has this beautiful piece of land. These are wealth transfer events. And these are tricks used by the ruling class in order to pacify the general public. Now, not only are these wealth transfer events, but they are inflationary events. So right now you're saying, yeah, but Ed, this is the modern world. There's no way debt would be forgiven now. Well, a newsflash. It's already happened. Remember after that worldwide flu that we had and the government put out these PPP loans, they flooded small businesses with these PPP loans that were immediately forgiven a year later. So the government gave small businesses debt and then they forgave them. Debt jubilee. And that money went onto our balance sheet and therefore inflation. So again, why are our people in power surprised when we get inflation? And more recently, we've had the president of our country, with a stroke of a pen, by executive order, by decree, forgiving a massive amount of student loan debt to the tune of $590 billion. Now, of course, he looks like a hero to his base, but hold on a minute. What about all those people who were responsible about paying off their student loan debt? They've made their payments. And what about those people who didn't even go to college because they did not want to assume a lot of debt? So are all these people suckers? They're kind of feeling like it. Not only do they see other people getting bailed out, but now they're told that they have to pay the bill for those people who got bailed out. So to remind you of the current financial status of the populace in America, let's take a look at the current rate of debt. Okay, so look at this chart. Okay, so combined consumer debt between mortgage payments, revolving credit loans, auto loans, credit card, student loans, and other is over $16 trillion. So could we see car loan debt jubilees, credit card debt jubilees, mortgage debt jubilees? Well, the closer we get to election day, the bigger that possibility becomes. So how does the government pay for all of this debt? Well, are they going to put more debt onto our balance sheets? Are they going to issue more treasury bills? Listen, the government in the month of June, just in the month of June, is going to issue $1 trillion in new treasury bills. Half of that is going to go toward servicing debt on our existing debt. As interest rates go up, the cost of servicing our national debt also goes up. And it is quickly going to become the largest line item of expenses for the country. And if you look out 10 years, 20 years, it is just not sustainable. Every single penny collected in taxes will go toward servicing the existing debt, not paying down the debt, just servicing the debt. This is not sustainable. So the only method that the government has to finance debt jubilees is to print more money. And of course, we all know what that does for inflation. Inflation is going to go through the roof. Look, listen, we are going to see Venezuela type inflation, maybe even Argentina type inflation. If they're going to do these debt jubilees, that is what has to happen. And then we've got the mother of all debt load, the national debt. Could they actually do a debt jubilee on $32 trillion? The coming federal debt jubilee. The U.S. government has the biggest debt in the history of the world, and it's continuing to grow at a rapid, unstoppable pace. In short, the U.S. government is fast approaching the financial endgame. The truth is, the debt will keep piling up unless Congress makes some politically impossible decisions to cut spending. Is there anyone in the audience who seriously think that's going to happen? They're going the opposite direction. They can't spend money fast enough. The amount of debt is so extreme that even a return of interest rates to their historical average would mean paying interest expense on the debt would consume more than half of the current tax revenues. Raising interest rates high enough to dent inflation would bankrupt the U.S. government. In other words, it's game over. They have no choice but to reset the system. That's what governments do when they are trapped. And so there you have it. Okay, we have a financial reset coming. Now, what exactly that reset looks like, no one's quite sure, but I can guarantee you a few things. Inflation is going to get way out of control before this is over. The standard of living for Americans across the board are going to be dramatically affected, unless you're prepared, right? There is a way to take advantage of it. The best thing you can do is start accumulating scarce assets that are unencumbered. Okay, they're debt-free, you own them. The most obvious one, gold and silver. So imagine if you started taking that fiat money that's in your bank that's losing you money, and instead of keeping it in a depreciating asset called the US dollar or whatever currency of the country you're in, and you put it into gold and silver and preserve that buying power. The worst place for your money these days is in a bank account. But if we ever have that massive federal debt jubilee, your dollars are going to be wallpaper. And less than 0.5% of the world population own any gold and silver. What the hell? And if you want to know the best way to acquire gold and silver, get in touch with me and I can hook you up with the program. So debt jubilees, they sound wonderful. They sound like a lot of fun. They sound really nice, but they are not good. And they could be the final straw of our current financial system. Remember, financial systems get reset all the time. You do not want to be caught precariously in that transition. Take advantage of it. Get some gold and silver. So reduce your exposure to your bank, put some of your money into gold and silver, and establish streams of passive recurring income.
Copy that.